closely comparable to soybean. And this grows into a big tree, and it produces fruit non-stop all year round. Very tolerant on disease, and you don't need a lot of water with this. You can plant 5 hectares of this, and you could probably supply enough protein source for your livestock. But this is locally known as Kadyos once again. And
hinahalo to sa ano?
Gulay.
Sa gulay. Langka.
Langka.
Ang tawag yan is KBL. Kadyos. Baboy, langka.
There you go.
Anong nakita mo na problema ng feed production sa Pilipinas? Aqua Feeds mainly, and Poultry and Livestock Feeds.
Well, for one thing, we're fully dependent on raw materials coming from abroad. Soybeans, wheat bran, and once the price in the domestic market goes up, we have no alternative but to increase the price of our feed.
So anong option ang nakita mo? What are the options?
The options are fairly simple. Right here in my hands is Pigeon feed, which is locally known as Kadyos in Filipino. And on my left hand is the typical Munggo. This has a very high crude protein values. But the reason why we're not producing enough of this is because there's no incentive for farmers to plant them. There's no market. But like Kadyos, for instance, this is a perennial tree wherein once you plant it and it start bearing fruit, non-stop ang harvest mo. Because they flower, they make beans, and then the beans dries up and it continues producing beans all year round.
What's the protein content?
Very high protein content. Pigeon feeds roughly ranges from 28 to 34% protein. But the total digestible energy, which is the most important, which is basically your carbohydrates, very high in carbohydrates. Same with Monggo. Monggo right now, it ranges from 28 to about, 30. But again, the protein content is also very high.
So what's your suggestion?
Suggestion is to really talk to the farmers, just like what the Canadians did. They were able to get rid of soybeans in their feed formulation because they were able to make contracts with their farmers to produce the pea family of beans. And most of the Canadians now are free from soybean
dependence. Okay. What are the other beans that could be propagated?
Well, in the field of feed formulation, like in Africa, for instance, they're more dependent on broad beans, meaning it's a bigger size beans.
Ano ang example sa atin sa Pilipinas?
An example of that would be your Patane, your other stuff that are big size beans. You know, beans like white beans and all those things that are consumed by human beings. But the reason again that we cannot produce enough of this is there's no market for it. You know.
So market ang kailangan.
Market ang kailangan. So we can, every time you talk to farmers, it's the same problem. We can grow them as much as we can, but once we have the
so now
no
we are
market.
formulating feeds which would be using these.
Exactly.
And our strategy is to encourage farmers to supply the small feed mill that we have.
Exactly. Because big feed mill don't care about these things because they know there's not enough supply for them. So they still depend on soybeans and corn and stuff that are...
Okay, very good. So may pag-asa ang mga Monggo farmers and Kadyos farmers.
Not only that may pag-asa, but on their crop rotation, that's the only way wherein you can grab nitrogen from the atmosphere. because you have your nitrogen fixing bacteria on the roots of the Munggo, but it also help fertilize and you save money on your urea use in palayan.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Rocky Friends.
Thank you.